Some crimes are pretty straightforward. They're about rage or maybe greed. But the case we're diving into today, it's something else entirely. It's a story about a dark obsession, one so powerful that the goal wasn't just to end a life, it was to literally steal it. This quote, it just cuts right to the heart of it all. It's from a book co-written by the victim's own mother, and it says everything you need to know about the motive. This wasn't about something Rachel Barber did, it was about everything she was. So let's go back to March 1st, 1999 in Melbourne, Australia. A promising dance student named Rachel Barber just disappears after class. At first, it looked like maybe, just maybe, she was a teenage runaway. But that theory would soon unravel to reveal a horrifying, meticulously planned murder, all fueled by jealousy and a chilling desire for replacement. All right, so to really get what happened here, we're going to walk through the story in 6 parts. First, we'll meet Rachel, and then her killer. We'll trace the day she disappeared, uncover the killer's shocking diary, explore the motive, and finally, look at the aftermath. Okay, first things first, let's get to know the girl at the center of this story, Rachel Barber. Rachel's life was, by all accounts, just full of promise. I mean, she was this incredibly dedicated dancer, so passionate that she'd switched to a specialized art school. She had a loving family, she was in her first serious relationship, she was on a path that seemed destined for a professional career on the stage. Now, let's turn to the other person in this story, the one who was living in the shadows of Rachel's bright world, Caroline Reed Robertson. And the contrast between these two girls, wow, it couldn't be more stark, especially when you see it through Caroline's own eyes. In her diary, she would write about Rachel with adoration, but described herself with just pure self-hatred, calling herself pizza face and ugly. Caroline was 4 years older, she'd been a babysitter for the Barbers, and she grew up in a really tense home, all while struggling with low self-esteem, epilepsy, and depression. It was just this dark internal world that stood in deadly opposition to the life she so desperately wanted. This is what a forensic psychiatrist said during the trial, and it just nails the core of it. Caroline didn't just envy Rachel. She built up this fantasy that if she could just eliminate her, she could somehow absorb her life and become her. This wasn't simple jealousy. This was about erasure and replacement. So this obsession, it wasn't just staying in a diary. It was building toward a single fateful day, March 1st, 1999. The day the trap was sprung. It all began with a phone call. Caroline offered Rachel what sounded like easy money, about $100, to be part of some confidential psychological study. Rachel was excited, earning her own cash. She told her boyfriend she had a secret job but kept the details to herself. So after dance class, she met Caroline. And then, nothing. When her father got to the tram stop to pick her up at 6:15, she just wasn't there. For a girl who was always on time, this was the first terrifying sign that something was very, very wrong. And you can just imagine the family's panic. When the Barbers reported Rachel missing, the police response was, well, frustratingly slow. They saw it as just another teenage runaway. But her family, they were adamant. They knew their daughter. Rachel would never do that. So they started their own desperate search, putting up posters, pleading with anyone for information. But pretty soon, the investigation would take a very dark turn, leading detectives to a discovery that laid out a horrifying, premeditated plot. The pieces started clicking into place. A witness remembered seeing Rachel on a tram with a woman who matched Caroline's description. Then, phone records confirmed Caroline had called the Barber home the night before Rachel vanished. When police finally went to Caroline's apartment, they found her unconscious from a seizure. And in her room, they found the key to the entire case, her diaries. What was written in that diary? It was just beyond belief. A cold, calculated plan laid out in terrifying detail. Lure Rachel to her apartment. Drug her with a laced pizza. Strangle her to death with a telephone cord. Hide the body. Then put it in an army bag and bury it on her father's farm. And the final, absolutely chilling step? Assume her identity. Become Rachel Barber. And that right there, that's the ultimate motive. It goes so far beyond jealousy into something way more disturbing: identity theft. Caroline's plan wasn't just to get Rachel out of the picture. She genuinely believed that she could step into her shoes, take on her identity, and start over with the perfect life that she thought Rachel had. and police found undeniable proof. There was an application Caroline had filed for a copy of Rachel's birth certificate. Her diary had detailed plans to use this new identity to get a bank loan. And maybe the most chilling detail of all, she had chosen a new name for herself, Jem Southall. Southall was Rachel's mother's maiden name. That's how deeply she'd embedded herself in this fantasy of joining the Barber family. So with Caroline's confession and the horrifying discovery of Rachel's body, the case moved toward a legal conclusion. But for the people left behind, the pain was really just beginning. So, in October of 2000, Caroline Reed Robertson pleaded guilty to murder. She was diagnosed with a personality disorder, but still found to be legally sane. A judge sentenced her to 20 years in prison, calling the crime an act of extreme evil. And then, after serving just over 15 years, she was released on parole in January 2015. Rachel's story just left this deep scar on the community. Her mother, Elizabeth, fought to tell Rachel's story from their perspective and co-wrote the book Perfect Victim. That book was later adapted into the film In Her Skin, all to make sure that the vibrant, talented, young dancer would be remembered for who she was and not be defined by her tragic end. The case of Rachel Barber really forces you to ask a disturbing question. Where is that line between admiration and obsession? It shows how envy, when it gets twisted up by deep insecurity, can curdle into a fantasy so powerful it ends up destroying not one life, but two. It's a chilling reminder that the desire to be someone else can actually become a motive to erase them completely.